Okay, in the last video we thought about how Jesus is the king of a coming kingdom. That is the reason that he was crucified, because he claimed to be a king. He was crucified for sedition. In this video session, we're going to think about, okay, if he's king of a coming kingdom, what is this kingdom going to be like? Now, we know what the kingdom is going to be like because Jesus' life was a snapshot of the kingdom to come. So, what was his kingdom like? Number one, it's a kingdom of joy and celebration. Jesus demonstrated this at doing his first ever miracle. It was at a wedding in Cana in Galilee. The wedding celebrations in Jewish culture would last for a number of days. They were coming towards the end of the celebration. They ran out of wine. That was a disaster. It's like all the people are still here. The celebrations have got another day or two to go, and we've run out of wine. It's like disaster, humiliation. Jesus turned hundreds of gallons of water into wine. Because of Jesus, the joy and the celebration and the party continued. Jesus is the kind of person you want at a party. He was demonstrating that his kingdom is a kingdom of joy and celebration. But not only that, he demonstrated what the kingdom is, but also what it isn't. And surprisingly enough, what it isn't is it is not a kingdom of religion. A lot of people quite understandably but wrongly think you've got to be religious to be a Christian. But when Jesus turned the water into wine, it wasn't any old water. The water that he turned into wine was water that was stored in vats that were used for religious ceremonial cleansing. Jews had to go through this ritual in order to go and serve in the temple. So what Jesus did is he took this symbol of religion and said, I'm done with that. I don't like religion. I'm not into it. From now on, my kingdom is a kingdom of joy and celebration. Secondly, his kingdom, he showed us, is a kingdom of health and restoration. Every single person that came to Jesus was healed of sicknesses, of diseases, of infirmities and disabilities. And when Jesus healed people in that way, he was showing that he's got authority over all of those things and power over all of those things. And in his kingdom, those things will be no more. If you've struggled with any of those things, you can look forward to a kingdom where you will be free. You'll be able to run again. You'll be able to be a gymnast or whatever else it is that you might want to be that you can't be because of health. Thirdly, Jesus demonstrated that his kingdom is a kingdom of plenty. In other words, on one occasion, Jesus fed 5,000 men, plus women and children, with a few pieces of fish and bread. He multiplied and multiplied and multiplied, did this amazing miracle so that everyone had plenty. And at the end of it, the disciples, who were the ones serving it all out, were left with 12 baskets full of bread. And that was Jesus showing that in his kingdom, that it's a kingdom of plenty. There will be no poverty. If you struggle with poverty, the promise of Jesus' kingdom is you will struggle no more. Fourthly, in Jesus' kingdom there will be no evil. Now the Bible teaches that people do all sorts of evil things to one another, but it also teaches that there's another powerful force of evil at work in the world over and above the human activity. Demons, the Bible calls it. The demons are spirit creatures that are corrupt. And they are at work in the world. And they work terrible evil. You know, it's not far-fetched to suggest that it's demons that are ultimately behind wars and terrorism, mass murders. When people go and do things, you think, how can you explain that? Only evil can explain that. It's the influence of demons. In Jesus' kingdom, there will be no influence. Jesus, in his earthly ministry, discerned demons and he cast them out and set people free from their influence. In Jesus' kingdom, there will be no demonic influence anymore. Fifthly, in Jesus' kingdom, there is no natural disasters. On one occasion, the disciples were all in a boat out at sea. Now remember, a number of these are seasoned, hardened fishermen. But a storm rages. The wind is blowing, waves are crashing over the boat. The disciples are panicking. They think they're going to die. It's buttons down. This is the end. Jesus calmly stands up and speaks to the wind and the waves. He stills the wind and flattens the waves. And in doing that, he was showing that he's got authority and power even over the elements. And that in his kingdom, there will be no natural disasters. And finally, Jesus in his earthly ministry, he brought people from death back to life. People who had died, he brought them back. And he showed that in his kingdom, he has power even over death, and death will feature no more. Death that is the last enemy, the Bible calls it, that comes for every one of us, the tyranny that overtakes every single man, woman and child. Jesus says no more will it have a place in his kingdom. So Jesus, the kingdom that he's going to establish, that he gave us a snapshot of, is a kingdom of joy and celebration, a kingdom of health and restoration, a kingdom of plenty for all, a kingdom where there's no evil, and a kingdom where there is no natural disasters, and a kingdom where there is no more death. The Bible says he will wipe every tear from their eyes.